Well, I'm very excited this week to talk travel. To be honest, I could probably make this podcast a travel podcast if I wanted to, but we are multipotentialites, so there's lots of other interesting things that we have too. But it's great when travel comes up, and who better to talk about travel with than our good friend John, the Curious Traveler, who I know a lot of you know. He's a good friend of many people and lots of different networks and communities. He has been on the Multipod before, I think a couple episodes in the past, and we had kind of roundtable discussions, and something like that brings up a bell. There's been so many episodes of the Multipod going back so many years, it's hard to keep track. Although the archive does exist. It's all there at themultipod.com. You can check it out. I made a whole spreadsheet of all the past episodes, so it is still alive and vivid. But at any rate, here we are in late 2025, and it's been a while since I chatted with John, at least on this show. So I thought it would be great to catch up, but also a great time to profile what he's up to, especially his CuriosiTrips. So again, something you might be familiar with, but John has started organizing little kind of weekend, just short of a week, let's say, type excursions. Well, the different places. Now, this will be the second time in Mexico City, coming up in January. He's also done one in Washington, D.C., basically where he lives. I'm sure there'll be lots more, though, coming and over the next year or two and beyond in different places, perhaps around the world. But at any rate, it's been fun to see him do this, and come up with the idea and put it into action and have the first one and then the second one and just kind of see it all unfold. So I was excited to see that another one's coming up. And the timing was great to talk about that. He's got some promotions going on. And if you're curious to know what it's all about, how it works, if maybe it's the right fit for you, if you're the type of person, and I understand that you kind of recoil maybe from the notion of like a group tour or a guided tour, you'd rather kind of follow your nose and do your own thing. That's certainly my instinct towards travel. But this kind of combines the best of both, because you can still follow your nose and explore curiosity. That's the whole point. But you also can do it with a smallish group, a dozen or so people who are doing the same things. And there's lots of space for spontaneity and for people to just kind of see what happens, make their own plans, a little bit of structure for sure, but it's a really neat way to go and explore a new place. Maybe you haven't been before. Mexico City, of course, is a pretty popular place. Maybe you have been there, but this would be a great way to see it in a different way. So John's here to tell us all about that, and you'll learn a little bit more about what he's up to lately and what he does to pay the bills, too, on top of all this. So great to have him back, and let's get to the interview. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm joined by my good friend, John McKenzie, who I know a lot of you know from various endeavors. He's John the Traveler, the Curious Traveler. Curiosity is going to be a great theme of our conversation today, and travel. I always love talking about travel. So, John, welcome to the show, for starters.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I know you've been on the podcast before, but I know it's been years, so it's great to have you back. And hey, we'll share a bit of update of what you're up to these days, and then we'll talk about some travel. So it's exciting. I mean, where have you traveled this year? How long is this going to take?
Ooh, how long is this podcast? This year was a big travel year. I will say that in general, I visited my 75th country of Ireland, but I think this year I went to about 17 countries. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Most of them were new, and most places that I went were new. So big travel year.
Yeah. It's like, is that a normal scale, or is that more travel than you usually do?
That's a bit more than usual. I definitely prioritized and doubled down on where I wanted to go and took advantage of some opportunities and in time and events to make that happen.
Okay. Neat. Yeah. So John has, again, a lot of you might be familiar, but John organizes the CuriosiTrips, and there's one coming up in the new year. So we're going to talk about that and a couple of the projects he has going on. If there's any kind of, well, we're talking to multipotentialites here, so I can't say, is there any one thing that keeps you busy these days, but what does keep you busy on a, maybe on a week-to-week kind of basis, over the course of your days?
Yeah, I do have a lot of different things up in the air, but the main thing I'm trying to focus on, especially right now in this final quarter of the year, is what am I going to do next year? Because of all the travel, I'm trying to focus a little bit more on business and organizing more CuriosiTrips and looking at what my 2026 is going to be like from a business perspective, and then I can kind of look at travel later. But
Mm.
I also have some clients in finance that I still work with,
Mhm.
and just between that and also wanting, since I'm actually home for the first time in a while, that I have an office, as you can see, that needs a little tidying up. So there's that.
Does it feel good to be home then?
You know, I will say, as much as I absolutely love travel, and I'll probably get some itchy feet here soon,
Hmm.
it does. I was exhausted after being gone for 2 non-consecutive months over the summer, and
Hmm.
then other trips even in between and around that. So, and a very fast-paced
Yeah.
trip. So very much exhausted and kind of looking forward to settling in. With the weather getting colder, it's just kind of a good combination. Settle in, do some focus work, and kind of get excited about next year.
Nice. Yeah. Well, it's true. It's a good season to do that and kind of refresh and reflect, on the things we've done. The busy year for sure. I do want to share quickly. We hadn't planned to get into this. I don't want to catch you off guard, but just as far as the client type work you do, pay the bills and to keep a business going. Do you want to share a little bit about the type of work you do? And hey, if there's anybody listening, of course, who might need your help, we'll point them in your direction.
Sure. Yeah. So I help small businesses with their operations and finance needs. I would say not accounting,
Hmm.
not tax preparation and things like that, but they're kind of their lower hanging financial things that they don't really want to do that take a lot of time or effort. I will also say that my previous job, my full time job, was doing grant management for a
Hmm.
university. So my current clients don't have a large volume of grants right now, as
Hmm.
that funding has been abated during this current phase in our lives. But
Hmm.
I do grant management, financial forecasting, budget forecasting, and then just kind of operational odds and ends and things that my clients who know me. I've worked with some of the clients before in my day job, so
Hmm.
they knew what I did, and so I would just help them with different like monitoring QuickBooks, making
Yeah.
sure that they've got enough money for the bills and things like that. So
Hmm.
helping with invoicing.
Okay. Interesting. Good. So if anyone wants to reach you for any of that kind of work, where do you send them or how can they reach you?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty much just have been word of mouth. So I don't have a website that talks about this at all. So it's
Hmm.
really just contacting me directly is the best if you're interested. Of course, LinkedIn as well. I do have
Hmm.
I do mention that the financial aspect of my world on there. So that's one way to reach me. But really, email any other way you can reach me.
Okay. Great. Well, we'll have those links in the notes for sure. But enough of that. Let's talk about travel. uh, is there any, I guess, proverbial question? Is there any one destination this year that really stood out to you as something different or unique or memorable?
Mm. Yeah, this was. It's hard to pick as always,
Hmm.
but I made some. I went to some pretty interesting places. I would say it's going to have to be Syria.
Oh yeah.
That's not your everyday average place to go. The specific reason that I wanted to go was just because they recently underwent a huge
Hmm.
change in government. The former Assad regime fell in December, and I was kind of monitoring the what was happening. I had seen reports from other travelers going, and it just felt I felt this sense of urgency to go and see history happening
Hmm.
before it changed again.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did because when I went, there wasn't even a visa policy. I also got to see things as they were still unfolding. I did go with a group. I usually
Okay.
prefer solo travel, but that's an area that I just felt I wasn't quite experienced enough to go wildly roaming around Syria. Although there are people that do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I went with a group, which was great because I also got to learn more about the history and what's going on, and I felt like it was probably one of the most impactful trips that I've had because I really felt
Yeah.
in kind of in my soul what they've gone through and what they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely an impactful trip.
Yeah, that's a remarkable opportunity. It's like, there's times in our life when you only have a once in a moment chance to go and see something before it changes, right?
Yeah.
And that sounds like it. I guess the obvious question is, did you feel very safe? When were you there?
hmm I was there in April,
Okay.
kind of mid to late April. So yeah, we were with like I said, a group. The group they've had led by a local. The company was local. The driver, everyone is from there. They know their way around. And sure, things can happen, but we felt very safe. There was one destination that we were supposed to go to one of the days, but they had gotten some news that there was some issues there, so we just didn't go there. We went to another place. And I, as a side note, I had registered for what this the State Department has this. It's called STEP. I'm sure most countries
Oh, yeah.
have this kind of, and I hesitated whether I even wanted to sign up for that, but I went ahead just to see. And I got an alert to say that there was a credible threat, but it didn't really specify where. It just said Syria. Well, our guide knew exactly where this was, and it was a very small, isolated area
Hmm.
that day, or at least that week, that was having some trouble, and to just be best to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere else, we felt safe, or I would say I didn't feel threatened by my presence or being a tourist. More than anything, people were just surprised to see
Yeah.
tourists coming back, and they were
Yeah.
happy because it's been a rough time for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good for you for going. It's great to support the locals like that. Yeah. What makes you decide to go to a certain place?
Yeah, that's always a tricky question too, because sometimes I feel like the places choose me. I know that sounds a little cheesy, but yeah, I had no plans to go to Syria, in January or
Hmm.
even February. Um, but I would say I use a combination of things that just feel urgent, like I was saying about the news reports were indicating that things were changing, and I just felt like I better get in here, especially with the new
Hmm.
administration changes here too.
Yeah.
What if we're not required? What if we're not allowed to visit certain
Hmm.
places? That also drove me to go to Cuba
Oh,
this
yeah.
year,
Wow. Cool.
and I just felt that it was important to, I use those criteria to determine, can I go there? Is there a window to fit in
Mm-hmm.
to go based on current events? Are they likely to change for the worse? And so it's better to go now, or the other criteria that I tend to use is there an event happening? So
Hmm.
the latest big trip that I took was tied to two events in Europe. So I went to where I live right now. I'm part of the sister city movement. So we
Oh,
have
yeah.
a local sister city organization that one of our twin cities is in Germany, Pinneberg,
Hmm.
Germany, which is near Hamburg. So they were having a 150th anniversary celebration. They invited some of us to come. I had never been there. So it's like, okay. And then right after that, there was a TBEX conference in Ireland. So
Hmm.
TBEX is a travel content creator conference. And so I looked to see, can I make it from one to the other in the time frame that I had, and I could. And then
Hmm.
I started figuring out, well, where do I fly into to get to Hamburg? Oh, Denmark's close. I've never been to Denmark. Well, Sweden's close to Denmark. well, kind of Norway's not that far away. And then I looked at flights to Norway and it went through Iceland. So see, this is what happens. I did not plan any of these places, but then as I was starting to, I had friends in every place but Iceland. So I started making my plan and, contacting people. Are you around? Can we meet up? Because that's a huge part of it too. So this particular trip, I think I met with 12 different people and stayed with a couple of them. And so that was a really different type of trip. It was the people first, and then the sightseeing happened. Whereas earlier in the summer, I went to Southern Africa. That was based on a combination of new region, weather, and do I have enough points and miles to get me somewhere far away? And so that's how that ended up happening.
Okay, so interesting.
But yeah, really, it's random. I didn't know I was going to any of those places in January. I had no plans. I think I had knew about the Germany event, but it was so far in the future that I really hadn't put anything together. And while I was in Africa, I'm booking hotels in Denmark. It's like this is the life of it was a lot. It was a lot, but as exhausted as I was after traveling so much, it was an amazing year that it'd be hard to top.
That's right. I remember your pictures at Victoria Falls. Was it Mosi-oa-Tunya?
Mosi-oa-Tunya.
Mosi-oa-Tunya. Yeah, that was close.
Yeah, okay. No, that was amazing. And actually, Victoria Falls, that area, is probably one of the best places. I know people who have never been to Africa sometimes wonder what's the best first place to go in Africa. I would say this is definitely up there because it's far from most places. Yeah. But you can see a lot, not just the falls. There's lots of wildlife. There's lots of cultural activities there. You could go into Botswana, which is another place I went on a game drive. I think it was only maybe 3 or 4 hours, but I saw so many animals right there. It was just, I couldn't even, at first I was like, okay, we had 10 minutes. We hadn't seen anything. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is going to be one of those. And then the elephants, and then the giraffes, and then there were monkeys. And I was like, oh my God, it was incredible. And you can take a day trip from Victoria Falls to do that. I actually stayed in the area, but anyway, it offers a lot of great opportunities. So hope to offer a trip in the future. That's definitely on my list to do a curiosity trip in that area, but it'd be a different kind of trip than my other curiosity trips because you're kind of limited, but I think there's just so much that region has to offer.
Yeah. And hey, that's part of your curiosity trips, I think, is to break down some of the apprehension that people might have in going to a place that they might think is a little intimidating or overwhelming or scary or for whatever reason. And you're there to help, not chaperone, but just kind of guide them through that experience. So let's talk about that because the first one was in Mexico City back in January, the start of this year, right?
Yes.
And then you did one around Washington, D.C. Was that early May?
Yes.
Mid-May? Yeah. So then there'll be another one coming up. I've got the dates, January 15th to 20th, 2026, back in Mexico City. So first question, of course, why would you go back to the same place, the Curious Traveler?
Yes, I know. It's very rare for me to go back to the same place a lot. But Mexico City, this really started with this retreat, this breathwork retreat that I went to a few years ago, or the first one. And I just fell in love with Mexico City. It's one of those places that just, I felt like I just scratched the surface. Even with the Curiosity trip this year, when I was planning it, trying to figure out how to fit things into 5 days, I was like, man, there's so much here to offer. And I just feel like it's the kind of place that if you didn't have a lot that you wanted to go do, it's still just being there. There's so much food. There's so many neighborhoods. There's so many different things to go explore, and it's in, for the most part, the major things, or even the neighborhoods that are a little bit off the beaten track, are still close to the center, or close to a place that you can get to easily. And public transportation is very affordable, and even places that are a little further away, if you need to hop in an Uber, it's cheap. It's not like Ubers or Lyfts or things like that in other places. From the airport, I think it's maybe $15 and under a half an hour to get from the airport to just about anywhere in Mexico City. So it's just very what I call user friendly, but really just captivated me. I'd heard good things about Mexico City, but I also had heard a lot of not so great things in terms of, people tend to get a little nervous about Mexico City. They hear there's dangerous neighborhoods and they'll harvest your kidneys and all this stuff. And I just think that there's a lot of misinformation out there, just like with most of the countries that I've traveled to. The media tends to focus on the negative. Yeah. Sure, there's always places everywhere that things can happen, but for the most part, Mexico City and the places that we would go are in just regular neighborhoods. There's nothing uniquely dangerous about them. So
how much of the itinerary is planned, and especially in the sense, like, are there places that you're familiar with and maybe you know what to expect, or supposedly if it's safe or things to watch out for? Is that planned, or how much is left open to just follow your nose curiosity?
Yeah, so the way we have it designed is every day we have a couple, we'll start with a meeting point at some place, and so everybody gathers, and then we'll go to a couple designated either places to eat or attractions or experiences. And then there's usually, not every day, but some of the days, the full days at least, we would have some optional free time. So the way it worked in January of this year was that some people had some things that they specifically wanted to see. And so that free time is when they have that opportunity to go do that. But if people didn't really have anything specific in mind, then me and my partner would just pick an area to go explore or a couple things to go do. And it's like, hey, we're going to go do this. If you want to come with us, this is what we're doing. So it gives people an option if they don't really want to think about planning a day. Some people just don't want to have to plan stuff, right? This is designed for that. Hey, we don't have any, maybe we have a couple little things that we're interested in seeing, but the idea is picking a neighborhood or maybe even a restaurant or a market or something like that, and going there and then hitting a couple things along the way, or just being open to, if we see something interesting, we're going to go check that out. That may not be planned. And then we may have some plans later that we have to meet. And so we do have to be mindful of some of the time, but try not to do too much of that.
Yeah, so you have to leave space in the day, in the itinerary, to do that, right? To follow your nose.
Yes. I don't want anyone to feel like they have to do anything. They've paid for certain curated experiences. And in this case, we give everyone a Metro card or transportation card that's good for buses and Metro, so that they can, try that. And I try to encourage people to maybe if they're they're a little unsure of taking public transportation, like, try it out. But there's nothing really required, but I try to give people enough information so that they know what they have to choose from. And then if it's like, well, yeah, I'd really like to go to that dinner, the group dinner, but my friend is in town, or, for whatever reason, they're free to do that. And there's no obligation to go to anything in particular.
Is there a type of traveler or kind of person in general that you really are speaking to with these trips when you talk about them? And even like when you came up with the concept, who are you designing it for?
Yeah, so there's, I'd say, 3 categories that people on this trip would fit into. So there's one, somebody wants to go in this trip in particular, Mexico City. They've heard about Mexico City, they're interested in it, but there's still that everybody that they've talked to has said, oh, Mexico City is dangerous, or they just don't feel like comfortable going alone or with someone that that doesn't know about Mexico City. And so there's that. There's people that want to go with a group. They just want to go anywhere with a group, and especially a community. They might know me or be familiar with a lot of the people that might be people on this type of trip from our various communities. And so it's that idea of community. And then, there's just those curiosity, the curiosity factor, people that are curious about a new city, a way of travel that they may not be familiar with. This is not the type of trip that we are meeting at 8:00 and then at 9:00 we go here and 10:00 here and then we hit all of these tourist attractions. It's not like that at all. We'll have some flexibility and we may change the schedule while depending on who's signed up. And so it's kind of those three types of people that are in mind.
And what's kind of the target size of the group?
Yeah, I would say the max would probably be 16 people. Is kind of, I know it seems a bit odd, but I always add that it's like the baker's dozen idea. But really, 10. We had 11 last year, and that was really a nice group. We had enough people for people to kind of pair up, and we had a couple people pair up and kind of do their own thing a couple of the free times, and then we had other people that were able to kind of group together. So I'd say 10 to 12 was probably the sweet spot.
Yeah. Okay.
But
and I want to highlight some of the logistics too, because it is pretty substantial when you talk January 15th through the 20th. So the group kind of gathers here. That's Thursday, the January 15th. They gather in the afternoon. So the rest of that day, you've got all day Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then Tuesday morning, there's still breakfast. Maybe spontaneous things after that, but this isn't some 2 or 3 day weekend thing. It is pretty substantial. So that's impressive.
And I did add an extra day this year based on some feedback from last year. I also know that it's challenging when there are people that work. This is a holiday in the U.S., a holiday weekend in the U.S. It's Martin Luther King Day that Monday. So I did try to think of that in terms of scheduling, and we start Thursday afternoon to just in case people need to fly in that morning. But I really try to encourage people to come early and stay late so that they can see the touristy things, because as much as we may hate touristy things, there's a reason, exactly. Especially in Mexico City, there's some really cool things to see that are worthwhile.
And then I want to emphasize that it's not, people probably have a sense already, but it's not like your standard group tour. So accommodation is not included. Most meals and beverages, right, not included. It seems you have, you say, selected meals and beverages, so a bit, but it's not that kind of an all-inclusive type thing. You do provide public transportation, as you said, to group activities, but people need their transport to and from the airport and extra tickets and things like that. So it's, as a result, it's not like upfront expensive for the trip itself. It's kind of like if you envision spending a few days, 5 or 6 days in Mexico City, you're going there anyway, and you find your accommodation and you have a budget for meals and stuff like that. But then here is a bit extra where you get a really interesting, immersive, guided, interactive experience on top of that, instead of just wandering around on your own, which is fun. But it's nice to have some structure and to be with other people.
Yeah, and I really did want to try to keep the costs somewhat reasonable for people. I'm not trying to say that I'm an expert and going to talk about history. That's also part of it. Is I want this to be more of a peer-to-peer type of travel. Let's travel together. Yes, I'm leading the group, but I want this to be fun for everyone, and I want it to be somewhat fluid based on who's signed up. And accommodations, just because there's so many different budget styles, I wanted people to have that flexibility for their own budget. Maybe they want to come, but if you were paying for a 4 or 5 star hotel, then that budget's going to be a lot higher. but this allows you flexibility.
Now, are you able to maybe try to point people in the same direction so that people can try to stay in the same neighborhood or something like that?
Yes, I actually have for people who sign up, and I mean, if people are interested, I can share them. I have a resources page that has
Okay.
recommended neighborhoods and a couple different types of lodging,
Yeah.
because there's a particular area that actually we'll be staying in that has pretty much everything, from hostels up to five-star hotels.
Okay. And the other thing that came to mind too, I've been curious ever since you launched this, right? And thinking about it over the past year, like what's it like, what's it been like for you as a solo traveler and all the traveling you've done to step into that role as the guide or at least the host and the organizer? Has that been weird or different or how's it felt?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think before I did it, it did feel a little unusual for me because I am such a solo traveler.
Mm,
But having gone on a couple of smaller group trips before this, I started thinking of it as, okay, this is different because I'm the one that's kind of doing my own thing. Really, I'm still just traveling the way I would normally travel, but I want to show people how that is. So once I did it, it really felt much more natural and aligned with what I felt like
mm.
I should be doing, if that
Interesting.
makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. You know, I often reflected when I was a tour guide for years, a tour director, which I always felt was quite ironic because I would never want to go on a guided tour myself. And yet I could be a tour director. But all that being said, the best thing about it was that you could travel vicariously through the others who are on your tour and watch them enjoy your city or wherever you are right through their eyes and explore it, discover it for the first time. So it's a wonderful feeling. And in your case, it's, I mean, you're familiar with Mexico City, but still you're a visitor too, right? You're a
Mhm.
traveler. So you kind of get a bit of both. You're traveling while doing that guiding and enjoying it through others and facilitating. You know, it's a interesting kind of crossroads type experience to be in, but it is very satisfying to have to be in that seat and be able to guide people.
Yeah, no, it
Yeah.
was a lot of fun, and yeah, definitely included. And even this year, well, 2026, there's some new areas and new things that we'll be doing that we didn't do before and that I haven't done before,
Mm.
because I think that's part of the whole idea behind this is that if it was just something that I was 100% had already done everything, then it's not it isn't going to be quite as interesting for me as the leader, and that's going to show. And so I always want to keep it
Mm.
fresh and have a couple different things, whether we go back to Mexico City, again or multiple times, or if it's a new place, there's always going to be something new to see. And
Hmm.
yet there's also some favorites. The chocolate workshop was probably definitely the
Oh,
number
cool.
one thing in January, and so we're doing that again. And I don't mind that because I love chocolate. So, and it was really interesting and fun.
Nice. Neat. Cool. Okay. Let's focus then on how can people get in touch with you about this to ask you more and to find out more, and how can they book? What is it? What do they need
Yes.
to book? Do they need to make a
Mhm.
deposit?
No, it's just it's a single payment. I mean, if people are you know concerned, I would say reach out to me. But
Hmm.
I'm somewhat flexible these days, but I just wanted to make it easy. There's a specific website for this trip, but johnthetraveler.com, you'll see a link for CuriosiTrip, and
Hmm.
you can find out the current itinerary, all the details. There's several book now buttons on that page,
Yeah.
and then if you do have questions or if you're still you want to know more information, always feel free to reach out to me. I'm on all the social media with John at John the Curious Traveler on Instagram and Facebook. You could also um, just email me
Yeah.
curious at johnthetraveler.com.
Nice.
And
Okay.
yeah, happy to jump on a call or chat, whatever's comfortable with for people to find out more. So yeah.
Cool. Okay. And I heard you might have a special promo code for our listeners and viewers.
Yeah, so the early bird rate did expire at the end of October, but I did want to create a special discount for people that are listening. So that discount code at checkout would be Putty25. So PUTTY25.
Putty 25. Nice.
Yes.
Yes. Tribute to our roots in the Puttyverse.
Yes, yes.
That's a good memorable code. So we'll have all that stuff, of course, in the links here in the notes for the episode. So if any of that piques people's interest, which I'm sure it will, I mean, I'm thinking about it. I don't know if we can swing it here, but if it's possible for my wife and I to come down, that would be pretty cool. But one way or another, at least, I hope that you get lots of great folks and familiar friends, of course, joining you down there. Look forward to hearing about it afterwards, and some great stories. Seeing more CuriosiTrips for sure come up over the next year and beyond. And I guess that's about it. So thanks for being here.
Well, thank you very much. And I will say that I do have a repeat visitor from last year's or from January's CuriosiTrip is coming back to Mexico City again.
Okay.
And we have some potential other repeat visitors. So
great.
We'd love to have you.
Yeah. And we'd love to have you and Mark come up here and visit us in Quebec too. So keep that in mind.
Definitely.
You're not that far. All right. We'll see you next time.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Cheers. So there's the update from John. Again, great to have him back here on the Multipod and hear what he's been up to, all of his amazing travels. If you're friends with him on Facebook or if you get his newsletter, for sure you will have seen some of his amazing photos of those travels over this year, but also other places. You know, he went to Antarctica. He's been to Eritrea and Ethiopia last year in Africa, Thailand there. I mean, all over the place. It's amazing to see this guy travel. It's very, very inspiring. So, as I say, I mean, we could have all kinds of episodes here about his adventures and his approach, his mentality to travel too, in a very multipotentialite way. You know, again, follow your nose and be spontaneous and kind of see what's out there. Never really doing any one trip the same as the last one. You know, lots of variety too. So, all that being said, yeah, great to have him here and get that update. And if the CuriosiTrip in Mexico City speaks to you, well, reach out and ask him any questions, of course. He's got a great website with links here in the notes. If you want to learn more, it's got all the details. They're really good about answering those FAQs and getting the details that, you know, just the logistics, right, that people are curious about. It's all right there. And we're even floating an idea, we might do this, John and myself, of probably on Instagram, live Q&A type thing. And I'll be like the moderator. I can ask him some questions, some of those questions, you know, the things that often come up in conversations. And of course, be live, you know, if people have other questions too that come to mind, be a great place to do it. So we're not sure if we're going to do that, but it would be fun. If we do it, it'll be soon because the CuriosiTrip is coming up in like scarcely 2 months, 2.5 months. So hopefully we'll get on that and we'll let you know. It'll be a fun thing to do. Most likely on Instagram, but we'll let you know. Two things also I want to mention with John. If you're coming back to the newsletter, if you're not subscribed, it's a wonderful newsletter too. It's a great combination of lots of travel for sure, but, you know, thoughts and perspectives and the things that he's learned through all of those adventures and trying to balance the love for travel and adventure with, doing work and client work and paying the bills and just finding that balance. Anyone who's a very committed nomad knows the challenge in trying to work while you travel and trying to keep up with all of those demands. So he shares a lot of those perspectives in the newsletter and links to all the other kinds of things that he's interested in and then he's involved in. So do sign up to the newsletter if you're not already. And the other thing here too, we were going to talk about this, but we ran out of time, but the timing is good. Let me just pull it up here. In his most recent newsletter was a reminder that John is now a published, at least contributing author to National Geographic of all places. He is in the Traveler's Atlas of the World, which will be published on November 4th. He says it can be pre-ordered online, and most likely by the time you're seeing this, it'll be out. It'll be out very soon. It's at most major booksellers, your favorite bookstore. I'll see if here I can get a link, I'm sure, where you can order it. But that was pretty neat. He says it's a good holiday gift full of travel inspiration. And he contributed 3 chapters. So National Geographic's The Traveler's Atlas of the World, pretty neat. Our own John McKenzie is in there. Alrighty, well, if you'd like to come on the Multipod here and share what you're up to, certainly if it's related to a business offer, certainly doesn't have to be travel, could be anything at all, but if you like to reach an audience, maybe tap into a familiar audience. I know a lot of us know each other and we kind of cross paths virtually, in WhatsApp groups and Facebook or forums and things like that, but it's nice to know what people are up to, and the Multipod is a great place to remind them of that. So you're welcome to come here on the show. We can do a fun, quick conversation like I just had there with John. It's roughly 25-30 minutes type of thing, and share what you're up to and how people can reach and make a better connection with what you have to offer. So look forward to hearing from you. Be back again in a couple of weeks with the next episode.